Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. The threats to India. I think my entire channel is based about that. We've been talking about threats for the past some time with various different people, but I thought, it is time to put them under one paradigm discussion where we can take through each and every subject and actually discuss a little detail as to what does India have as a threat, what does India have to protect, and what does the security scenario for our great nation look like now and in the coming future. To discuss this all, I have with me Major General Sudhakar Jee, British Seva Medal. He has vast experience in operations across a wide spectrum of conflict terrain profiles within India and abroad. The General Officer was also holding the appointment of the Deputy Commandant of the Army War College. He has the distinction, as I said, of serving in all areas of contention between India and its neighbors, and today is doing a doctoral thesis on the amicable resolution of the India-China border disputes. I might just add, this is one of the biggest crux points for India's security interests in the future. An analyst, a commentator on strategic issues, who is there in news media as well as in written articles very often. Thank you, sir, for joining me for this discussion. And I hope to kind of, learn a lot from you with regards strategic threats that India faces today. In this first episode, we will be discussing the threats, a small sort of a fact file just to remind us what India is all about and its surrounding, where the threats are coming from. I'd leave the floor open to General Sudhakar Jee. Sir.
Aadi, at the outset, I must thank you wholeheartedly for having given this offer to me after you heard that I have been going around premier institutions in the country and abroad lecturing on regional security perspective of India. And when I said premier institutions in India, essentially they are IITs, Higher Air Command, our own higher command in the Army or College, senior command, junior command, also in many other establishments. By and by, I have been approached by many prospective candidates as also very rising stars for the nation building to disseminate the content of this talk in the best of forms, which can be easily accessible to the candidates as also use them for different purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, any amount of praises about Mr. Aadi would still fall short, but at a young age, the kind of the horizon of knowledge that one gets to see from his multiple subjects that he has picked up in recent past through the YouTube channel are phenomenal. I can't help but compliment him and wish him all the very best in his venture.
Thank you, sir.
Despite the fact that he is in a non-military kind of a domain and he is in a very high pedestal. Yes, those of us who don't know, he's son of a very senior veteran from Air Force. Ladies and gentlemen, today the talk essentially, he's already given the primer on the canvas, is about the security. This is a flow out from the topic which I have been going around and talking to different forums on regional security perspective of India. Traditionally, I have been starting this topic by asking my audience as to what do they understand by security. Since we do not have an interactive kind of a session here, I'll give out the essential aspect for a layman to understand what security means. He needs to know that it is state of being free from danger or threat, as simple as that. And what does it mean? How does it relate to the national security? So if I explain the terminology security in terms of the requirement to maintain the survival of the state through the use of economic power, diplomacy, and power projection and political power, the concept was developed mostly in the United States after the World War II. And that brings me to the third and most important terminology, which is often used in security paradigm, is the comprehensive security, and further on you can add comprehensive national security. So what is comprehensive security? It's important to understand all this, then by and by you'll be able to correlate. This is for different kinds of audience and clientele. Comprehensive security is an approach that goes beyond the traditional realist, state centric, and military approach and includes human, economic, and environmental dimensions, as well as subjective feeling of security or insecurity of individuals. The whole paradigm of security comes down to the central point of an individual, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, I would say, let's bring the context to our Indian peninsula. When I talk about the Indian peninsula, in the recent past, one was very fortunate to get a call from one of the apex organization of the leadership, the hierarchy in the country, to write an article about Akhand Bharat. So when I started doing research, I was amazed to see and also read that Akhand Bharat, also known as Akhand Hindustan, which is an irredentist concept. It projects the modern day India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Tibet, Sri Lanka, and Burma. I would have actually skipped this particular sentence, but for the future generations. As the time is passing by, ladies and gentlemen, it's very important for all of us to know and remember what is the origin of our country, India is. A little more value addition, if I make, in 71 years of the British rule, most of us may not be knowing that Akhand Bharat was partitioned 7 times. Firstly, Afghanistan was separated from India in 1876, Nepal in 1904, Bhutan in 1906, Tibet in 1907, Sri Lanka in 1935, Myanmar, erstwhile Burma, in 1937, and Pakistan in 1947. So also, as an extension of what I am talking about, the Peninsula India, this was so far was about undivided India. But a word about what constitutes to make the nation state India. At the time of British withdrawal, we had 565. Quite often people, they get amazed to hear a figure of 565. Where the hell have you got this 565 princely states? At the time of British withdrawal, ladies and gentlemen, we had 565 recognized princely states who were brought about through the Treaty of Accessions to form the independent India. So with this preamble, I would take you to the Constitution, Article number 1, which simply to highlight, Article 1 in the Constitution states that India, that is Bharat. It's very important to underscore the interpretation and the implication of this particular phrase called Bharat, or the nomenclature Bharat. It has got very deeper meaning. Shall be a union of states. I leave it to the future generation how you interpret this thing. And thereafter, I'll very briefly also would like to share with the audience that we have unsettled boundary to both our sides, western side as also to the northern sides. There is a requirement to address them at the earliest for deserving socio-economic development in our country, so that we can actually blissfully go ahead with not 5 trillion, head towards 10, 15, or even more trillion-dollar economy. Now the security imperative. Yeah, Adi, you want to say something?
As a matter of fact, sir, what you're bringing out is very important, because you're talking about a status of India, and that is it is brought about through certain tremendous changes that have taken place during India's history, and compiled with a lot of background which a lot of us might not know. So it's a very interesting thing, sir. Thank you for actually starting it like that.
Okay, good. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the security imperative. You all would agree with me that India is home to 1/6 of the world's humanity, and its people aspire for a prosperous and safe future in which they can pursue their dreams without fear. Ladies and gentlemen, you would agree with me once again that this requires the nation state to ensure a conducive environment, both external and internal, in which India occupies its due place in world affairs, protected from all kinds of threats and risks. So, therefore, it brings me to the point, unless there is peace and harmony and tranquility in the nation state, and around, we cannot talk about a progressive, a forward-looking, and from a developing state to a developed country in future times. So, therefore, let's now identify what are the threats, like Adi has said, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we have unsettled borders along the western and the northern border, like I have shared with you. In addition to that, we also have proxy war in J&K, or the Union Territory of J&K. Plus, you also would have come to understand with deeper knowledge about the Northeast, the insurgency which has been prevalent right since mid-50s of our independence. And this insurgency, plus the neighboring country, Bangladesh, which was East Pakistan for quite a length of time, subsequently was liberated in 1971 with our assistance. Also, because of the evolving dynamics and the situation, we have had cases of a huge migration of population. And this was not only momentary or the temporary one, it carried on even after that. Until now, the HDI of Bangladesh has started showing very significant improvement. There may be cases which are being reported by media. There is a backward migration back to the country of Bangladesh. But despite that, we still have cases of illegal migration taking place into Assam and other places in that corridor. So, in addition to all this, ladies and gentlemen, we also have a red corridor. Once upon a time, the number of districts which are affected was touching almost very close to a figure of 200, more than 11 states. Today, fortunately, with the consistent and very effective measures by the government of India, the number of districts have been brought down to just about 25. So that is the kind of improvement which is showing. But that doesn't absolve us from the responsibility to factor it as a threat for the internal law and order situation. Because this threat, it takes away lots of our resources. Hence, since we are talking about a larger economy to grow, we also need to talk about as to how the produce of this economy is being consumed for the growth of the nation state. Besides that, ladies and gentlemen, you see, the Indian Ocean once upon a time was a subject of very limited relevance. But today, there is a thing known as SLOC, the sea lanes of communication. The entire global order, 40% of the entire trade passes through the SLOC. And I'm I just been able to download from the internet, 2/3 of the oil or the energy security it passes through this particular SLOC. And similarly, 1/3 of the containers is passing through the SLOC, and it takes us to the Indo-Pacific. So therefore, what it brings to is that there is a growing rivalry because of the assertive nature of China. Ever since it has actually started enjoying the booming economy from the Deng Xiaoping till 2020-21, and it has been able to dominate the world order to large an extent. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's quickly go over the issues of the geostrategic importance and the geostrategic interest of India for better understanding, because this subject is going to be very comprehensive, covering multiple aspects and dimensions for better understanding of regional security perspective of India. Before that, the peninsular India has started experiencing multiple new dimensions of threat. If I do not touch upon now, it will be a great disservice to the subject that we are handling. Ladies and gentlemen, we have cyber threat manifesting in very serious form. We have been attacked multiple times. There is a social media threat which is emanating as an extension of the cyber threat. Besides the cyber threat, ladies and gentlemen, the space has become a dimension wherein if we don't start taking into it in a serious manner, perhaps we may become a very serious victim. Our space is being manipulated and being used by our adversaries to their advantage. Case in point is the drone or the swarms which have been reported flying across the western border towards our side. Same is the case with the northern border. Often we have been jumping to conclusions that these lights, which are spotted early evening hours or maybe early morning hours, are basically the low Earth orbit satellites. But no, it has been very researched deeply by our scientific fraternity. They have gone to the northern border, carried out research, and they have come to a conclusion that these are nothing but these are different, multiple forms of unmanned aerial vehicles being launched by nobody other than China itself. Once upon a time, in 2011, China had just about 56 varieties of unmanned aerial vehicles or the UAVs. Today, China is crossing a figure of 216 varieties of UAVs. So these are the kind of statistics, and they have been using it to their advantage to carry out psychological paralysis of the soldiers on ground. Because I am a witness, I have been on ground at a place called Bumla, 17 of these UAVs coming together in the evening with flashing lights. They come, flash the light, show it as if they're taking a picture of our deployment. Thereafter, they scoot, the switch of the light, go to a distance 1,000 yards, 3,000 yards behind, and again they come back and take pictures. So 17 of them crisscrossing over our head actually is able to carry out a lot of demoralization of the troops on the ground. So therefore, we need to factor in all these aspects. Although we have made very serious attempt to bring them down, but there are different methods of making them untenable by ESM, ECM, and ECCM. ESM is electronic support measure, ECM is electronic countermeasure, and ECCM is by electronic countermeasures. So therefore, now it brings me to the issue of geostrategic importance and the geostrategic interests of India. So far, so good, Adi. You would like to add anything?
Actually, you brought out a very interesting thing where you mentioned about the cyber attacks, and you actually mentioned social media separately. I think that is a very, very critical thing, because what we are seeing, as a matter of fact, in the country for the past, excuse me, couple of days, and not really couple of days, but a couple of weeks, is social media storms about various different things being carried out. I don't want to get into the politics of it, but I think we realize that the social media storms that are being created with regards various small issues to make them larger than what they are is a big threat sometimes to the stability of a particular society. So that's all I actually wanted to say, sir. Over to you with regards to the geopolitics of the entire space.
Fantastic. That's a beautiful point you have actually brought out. And by and by later, when we come to that stage, maybe I'll give you an example of how Hezbollah, through the medium of social media, brought the Israeli army onto the knees in the battle, 36 days battle of 2006. I'll narrate that once I come to that stage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's quickly go over the geostrategic importance of India. As we all know that India is the 7th largest country as far as the landmass is concerned, and it has got 2.3% of Earth's landmass, and it has 17.99% of the total world population. And there is a sizable natural resources, which I shall cover once we come into that particular heading of the subject. And the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, is the entire world history is revolving around gravitation of the history towards the Indian subcontinent. Take your mind back as to why did everyone started coming towards India? Why is it so? More than the wealth that we had, why did so much of wealth accumulate in India? India, despite the fact that it was never an integrated nation state ever prior to 1947, how come this peninsula had so much of wealth? I would attribute much of our success and inherent security, existence of inherent security to the geography. Today, if there are so many nation states are gravitating towards us after the debacle or I would say disastrous withdrawal of US and NATO forces, it's because it's so poised. It's an extension of the Earth mass of by 2,000 odd kilometers into the Indian Ocean. Where else do you find such kind of projections of the Earth or the massive into the Indian Ocean? And Indian Ocean, mind you, is extending from one end from the East Africa to the Indo-Pacific.
And it's the Indian Ocean, sir.
Yeah. So therefore, what it brings to is the core issue is the geostrategic location of India. It is by virtue of this location, we enjoy the regional status as an economic anchor, and the geography makes us a principal stakeholder in the stability of the region. So by and by, try and understand, read between the lines, stability of the region from what? From the risks, from the threat. So I'm short of saying that, ideally speaking, by virtue of geography, India should be a net security provider to all the nation states which are part and parcel of Akhand Bharat. By virtue of the turn of event, they have got separated. And therefore, there is a requirement, maybe at some point in time, the nation state and the decision makers. As it is, we are spending a lot of money on each and every one of the states today, post 1947. So why not we put them under an umbrella and provide security? So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it also brings me to the second most important point. As you all know, that ours is the largest democracy in the world, and painting a seamless picture of unity in diversity. Remember. And therefore, it also leads me to another. This is one of the countries where we have, yes, Italy is another example. We have multi-party system. In a democracy, it's one thing to have two-party or maximum four parties, but not as many parties that we have political parties I'm talking of. Democracy, people call it as a noisy democracy. That's what the India is. But you never know, as time passes by, this multi-party system may boil down or crystallize into two-party system, where the decision-making will be faster, where the implementation, accountability, all these things definitely is going to be comparable with any other country which are non-democratic in nature, particularly our neighbor in the north. So that brings me to another issue, is that our armed forces, ladies and gentlemen, it is the third largest in the world. Some people in some literature I found in past couple of days, people are saying it is the second largest, but even now, as per my calculation, it continues to be the third largest in the world. And most important thing, kindly understand this, it is very important for the audience to uh, sink it into your system, that it is one of the largest armed forces in the world which is most apolitical. Never in the mind or thought process or ever in the dream of any soldier can anyone think of politicization of the armed forces. Never. It's the most apolitical organization that the environment has to understand, and it is a fully trained armed forces in different kinds of terrain and environment, starting from a desert to glaciated areas of temperature minus 50 degrees centigrade. So therefore, with these kind of attributes and strong record of a responsible and cooperative approach, India is being increasingly looked upon to play a larger role in the region and of late in global affairs. With that, let's come to the geostrategic interest. If that is what is... yeah, Adi, you want to say something?
No, absolutely, sir. I think you brought it out very well with regards to the positioning of India, and whatever said and done, the entire... I won't, go so far as to say just the Europeans, but the medieval powers, the powers during the medieval age, everybody kind of gravitated towards India. There were travels made from Europe, from, Africa, from places in Russia, from China, from Japan. There have been talks about trade with India and Korea during those days. So the region was basically gravitating around India, its cultures, and today we see a flip around to that location, where the geopolitical and the geostrategic location of India is again bringing it in the center stage with regards to the latest the foe of the world, which is China. So it's a very important thing for us to understand. Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Adi, you've actually highlighted a very important aspect. That brings me to the next point, is geostrategic interest. What is our area of interest? A few days back, while reading the newspaper, I read a comment of our Minister of External Affairs. It couldn't have been more relevant than what he said during his visit to Israel. Yes, our extent or the area of geostrategic interest was extending from Persian Gulf in the west till Strait of Malacca. But now, and in the north, we had Central Asian Republic, down to the south was Indian Ocean. But now, the rich Indian subcontinents or the India as a nation state, our reach has got extended by virtue of its importance, relevance in the global affairs.
Yeah.
I don't have to, give you facts and figures. We all know how the vaccine diplomacy has enabled us to reach up to 162 countries, or even maybe more than that. I might have lost count. At some point in time, I was counting, it was 162 countries in the world have received the benefits of the vaccines against COVID-19. So that is the kind of the reach that India has been able to establish in times of crisis, mind you, when the global order, all the groups and alliances had actually collapsed. Nobody was listening to anybody. Everyone's national interest was important. At that point in time, India, after having addressed its immediate neighborhood, it reached out to the global order, ladies and gentlemen. And India, mind you, we have a population of 1.39 billion. So looking after our own people and then looking after who else, which country in the world has ever thought like this? So when you talk about das Vasundhava Kutumbakam, the entire world is one family. It is here, this nation. That is why the different nationalities, different kinds of tribes, different kinds of invaders, they gravitated towards India long time back. So perhaps that may explain the theory, the spiritualism or the pragmatism of this continent, subcontinent, is the main source of attraction in addition to India. So I bring you to a very important point to underscore that the reach of India today, perhaps it may not be wrong to state, is in endorsement of what the Minister of External Affairs said, is that perhaps it is extending from Mediterranean in the west to Indo-Pacific in the east. While the Central Asian Republic in north and Indian Ocean, they continue, and the spheres of influence of India continues to become longer and longer. So like, just to justify my last sentence, if you recall, our own Prime Minister had gone on a visit, signed an MOU with Mr. Putin, the Russian president, Vladivostok, and he had proposed the communication channel between Chennai to Vladivostok. That is the extent and the reach of India, which is actually going beyond our comprehension and understanding. Some of our viewers may not be knowing that even in Arctic, we have been given a special offer by Russia to be a member, participating member in the expansion or domination of Arctic, or our presence in Arctic. Yeah. So this further defines the areas of geostrategic interest of India. But what we have to keep in mind is, merely talking about the interest of India is not good enough. There are many dimensions which are emerging. A case in point is shale gas in Indian Ocean. Couple of other issues which are emerging. The SLOC has assumed so much importance. Maldives, in our reckoning and understanding, never assumed as much importance until it almost fell out of our hand. Fortunately, democracy has come back to Maldives. Otherwise, China had almost taken it over. Now, mind you, the entire traffic, the trade and commercial activities of the global order passes through the Maldives, the Minicoy. We have a small island known as Minicoy Island.
Minicoys.
Between the Minicoy Island and the Maldives, the last island, there is a 9-degree channel. I hope I am not wrong. It's 9-degree channel, yes, through which almost close to 80 to 90% of the global trade by ships, they transit through this. Now, almost about, somebody has carried out a survey, says that there are 6,000 ships which not only pass through Malacca, but all of them pass through this particular corridor as well. So that is the kind of relevance which is emanating. Same goes for the Andamans. The importance of Andamans never got thrown up to the status and the level as we perceive it to be. Correct. Today, Government of India is investing something close to 10,000 crores to develop that into an unsinkable aircraft carrier. And as you see, there are 572 islands in Andaman Nicobar. But as you take your eyes to the southern portion of Andamans, we have another corridor, 10-degree channel, through which most of the ships actually pass through before they come to the Malacca. So that is the kind of importance which are emerging by having discussed about the geostrategic interest and geostrategic importance of India. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll come to fact file, but before coming to fact file, I'll request Mr. Aadi if you have any points to value add or any comments.
Actually, sir, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands that you mentioned is basically going to be like, the Chinese know it as a chain, the Iron Curtain of India. And
Yeah,
what we are trying to do is basically make it into a steel curtain so that it's stronger and harder. But I'd like to actually take from what you've said that the geostrategic interest of India is ever expanding now. It's not something that is static, and that is something that it can be easily brought out by looking at our participation in the Quad 2 with
very good point.
with
Excellent.
Israel, with UAE, with the United States, and where in the West Asian region. So that's something which is a very, very important thing. And to top it all off, we are in a partnership of a Quad 2, wherein two of the countries did not recognize each other just about 2 years earlier. So post the Abrahamical Accords, you're basically getting into the political bylines of the Middle East and the West Asian conflicts. That is a very, very large scope of activities that our country is getting involved with. So that's something that is very, very interesting, sir. So that's
Excellent.
my humble submission.
I couldn't agree with you more. By and by having unofficially being declared as a member of Quad 2, it is actually taking us to a paradigm of, instead of looking west, it is making us act west. Like the philosophy of acting east, looking east got converted to acting east. Now it is actually a lot of people having demanding or requesting that it's about time India has to act west, not look west. So that is what the importance is actually rising. And interestingly, Saudi Arabia also has started showing a lot of signatures about normalization of relationship with Israel. We all know Egypt, Sudan, all these countries, Jordan, Bahrain, UAE, they all have normalized relations. So by and by, I think all the entire Middle East, the 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 oil bowl of the world, is also going to normalize relations with Israel. That is going to change the entire dynamics of the Middle East. So that brings me to the fact file, ladies and gentlemen. Before we talk about the security or the national security, it's very important for us to understand what India is all about. We need to know, we take it for granted that we know everything about India. But yes, for the learned class, those who are in touch with the study syllabi and on day-to-day activities, they keep reading and keep updating themselves. And for people like us, I think there is a need to have a constant reminder of the shape, the size, the population, the language, and other aspects, particularly the HR, the human resources. So
Capitalism.
therefore, actually, what it brings me to is that I have already covered that it is the seventh largest as far as the land mass of the territory is concerned, and, uh, and there are two official languages and 22 scheduled languages. You all must know, and there are four major religions which actually trace back to the origin in India, in the world, four of them. And in addition to that, as you all know, it may be stating the obvious that it's a very diverse, multi ethnic kind of a society, multi-linguistic, and cultural polity. I don't want to actually take too much of time, otherwise, I've got the statistics how many languages, how many gods, goddesses, all this. So essentially, all this, it is a pluralistic kind of a very vibrant democracy. It binds the people by virtue of being diverse. This is the beauty of this subcontinent. And when I talk about binding the people or through the thread of Indianness, the Indianness, there is nothing substantive or something as a raw or kind of a product which you can convey or show to India. Indianness is a very concept, is an idea. A lot of people actually say that we need to have very substantive and concrete boundaries, definitive structure of Indianness. No, it can't. Indianness is an idea. Our forefathers also have defined Indianness as an idea. By and by, let's see how it actually assumes as time passes by. But what is Indianness? What is the central point of Indianness? Who makes this Indianness? It is the people of India. These people of India, Adi, you would agree with me, are, I'm told Adi himself is a research scholar, if I may say. He's been carrying out a lot of interviews and studies on the subject. As per his statistics, we have overtaken China. But as per my reading, until I am convinced, I'll go by my script. We have a total population almost close to 1.4 billion.
Yes.
But as per my figure, as per the global clocometer, it's 1.39, something like that. And it is percentage-wise, it is about 17.7% of the total world population, the second largest in the world. And this includes, now please understand, this is important. It includes 54% below the age of 25 years and more than 62% from the age of 15 to 59 years. This is important. That is how, if you carry out a statistical study, it is more than 60% people who are forming this huge youth bulge. This is the largest youth bulge. This youth bulge advantage will keep on accruing benefits to the nation state of India till 2053. Thereafter, we'll be going through the similar kind of paradigm and experience of the journey as Japan and China and other countries are going through. As per my statistics and analysis, the median age of an Indian as in 2021 is 28.4 years. Median age, just remember. Vis-a-vis or compared to the China's median age, as per Adi, it is almost 40, but as per my reading record here, it is 37.4. I just carried out a quick browsing in the net. And as per Japan, it is 47.3. This is the median age. So I'll go by this figure. Otherwise, it's very heartening and ego gets massaged when we compare with China and when he says it is 40 or more. So we get very happy and excited.
Absolutely.
Now, as per Adi, the population has already surpassed China. As per me, it is going to surpass sometime in 2025. Sorry, the latest is 24. Yeah, this is prior to coming for this talk. It is 2024. And India will remain the most populated country in the world through the end of the 21st century. Ladies and gentlemen, more than this, I have told you, the youth bulge is going to be till 2053. As per my record, there is a thing known as total fertility rate. India is one of the very few nations in the world which has not manipulated the TFR. The TFR, through different means of family planning and other remedial measures, we have been able to give a normal stabilization process. And this stabilization process, without too much of tinkering and interfering on its own, including one of the groups within the population which was perceived as the higher TFR in comparison to other segments in the population, on its own, without any manipulation, has already started showing and very prominent signatures of stability. In fact, they are going to be far better than the Hindu rate of growth. So, without naming anyone in this lecture, you all are intelligent enough to understand. But importantly, we need to keep in mind that by 2050, the population of India is going to touch a figure of 1.64. However, given the benefits of its natural progressive TFR growth, progressive I'm saying, some of the specialists, they feel that India may plateau at a population figure of 1.5 billion by 2050. And if we have this advantage of the youth bulge, we'll continue to grow in our middle class population, ladies and gentlemen. As on today, we have 600 million middle class population, the largest in the world. Defining the middle class with the percentage, that is $1.99 per head per day. That is the earning to 10 and 20 and beyond 20 likewise. Three different categories. 600 million. Less for COVID-19, during which 32 million have actually been subtracted and brought down in this figure. But still, this is What is middle class? And this is expected to be 1 billion by the year 2050, the largest number of middle class population. It gives you the inherent purchasing power. As on today, India is the fourth largest country in the world by the paradigm or the factor of PPP, purchasing power parity. And sooner or later, by 2030, people say, but as per my estimate, rough calculation, by 2027 or 28, India should be a $10 trillion economy. By 28, 29, or nearing 30, we should be the third largest country by nominal terms, as also PPP. That is the kind of calculation which I have carried out. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's try and understand the basics of the land border that we have. The land border, we have huge extended borders, partly with the western neighbor, Pakistan, partly with the northern neighbor, and also towards Myanmar, Bangladesh. So put together, we have something to the tune of 15,000 kilometers of our land borders with 7 different countries. Going in a clockwise direction from left to right, we have Pakistan, we have Afghanistan, we have China, we have Nepal, we have Bhutan, Bangladesh, Myanmar. All these countries, they have different kinds of religion, different kinds of composition of people. These will come to when we tackle them one by one. Each of the countries will be tackled in this course of lecture or the talk. And the land borders in India, they include, extending from the deserts in Rajasthan to icy heights of Siachen Glacier, 20,000 feet or more. I myself, I have operated in that kind of height in minus 53, minus 43 degrees Celsius. And also, it has got mountains, it has got thick jungles, it has got glaciated areas in those kind of terrains. It also has got terrain where the amphibious operation are more suitable to be conducted. So all put together, we also have undefined and unresolved boundaries, like I shared with you initially. And among these kind of challenges is the Indian Army, which is operating to guard the frontiers, the continental borders with our neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, it brings me to the maritime border. Our coastline, as most of you would be knowing, is around 7,516 kilometers. But before that, Adi, you have anything to say?
Very large, sir. That's the only thing. It's the I mean, I'm sure you will talk about the exclusive economic zone. It goes into millions and millions of kilometers.
Absolutely.
Which is going to be. It can be an asset, but a liability to us as well.
Yeah. I totally agree with you.
Sure.
So, maritime frontiers, ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, that we have 7,516 kilometers as the maritime frontier. And this, like Adi has very rightly brought out, that this gives us a kind of a enhanced, I would say, it is a matter of, a perception being described, enhanced kind of an exclusive economy. Had it been a flat one horizontal line, perhaps the exclusive zone would have been limited. Now it's a cone projecting into the Indian Ocean. You have advantage of both the sides. And also the third side, looking south.
Yes.
That gives us the enhanced, a kind of an exclusive economic zone of size of 2.01 million square kilometers. It means a lot. Maybe subsequently I'll explain to you what is the meaning of the internal water zone, what is the meaning of contiguous zone, what is the meaning of economic zone, what all activities can you carry out. These are becoming very rampant and rife in the South China Sea today. Because of this, there is a dispute between China and other neighboring countries. So therefore, it brings me to another important aspect, ladies and gentlemen. Within this exclusive zone and beyond these zones, we also have 1,200 island territories. In the year 2008 or 9, when I was dealing with some subject in the Army headquarters, we did not have well surveyed and well counted figures of these island territories. But by and by in 2011, 2013, the figures started coming out in print. Media also started using the figure. But that 1,200 took some time. It started rising from 900, 950, 1,100, 1,200. For all you know, this 1,200 may grow because the islands are so small and so far many that in years ahead, I still feel, this is my experience. I've been to Andaman myself, I've been to Lakshadweep and other places. You will never know, some of the islands we may have missed out. We'll get to know only when there is a threat or a risk develops or somebody comes and occupies that.
Mm.
Why am I bringing up this point is that that is the kind of threat that has to be perceived by every citizen of the country. Not only army or CAPF and the PAF and all these people. Every one of us has a role to play because it costs money. So therefore, 1,200 far-flung islands, they lie both sides. And most importantly, in Bay of Bengal, ladies and gentlemen, Bay of Bengal is very, very important. We'll cover it later. We have Andaman Nicobar Islands, which are approximately 1,300 kilometers, away from the nearest point on our east coast. And traditionally, it is called as, it's located strategically at the entrance of Malacca Strait. Like Adi a few minutes back gave a name that it is the Iron Curtain. You said something like this.
Sir.
It is so that's a beautiful experience to define. Along the west coast, ladies and gentlemen, we have a huge island known as Lakshadweep and Minicoy Island. Minicoy, once upon a time, anyway, to save on time, I'll not go into it, but it is to be part of Maldives. It is rightfully, it belongs to us. So you take your mind, buy your atlas, a map, orientate yourself, you will see what the meaning of 9-degree channel is. You'll get to know it's 200-kilometer wide.
Yes.
The depth of that also will be understood by. Anyway, so this is situated on the sea lanes of communication running eastwards from the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. While Andaman, I had told you, is around 1,300 kilometers, this particular island is about 450 kilometers away from our west coast. That brings me to the end of this part of our talk today. And I'll request Adi, if you have any points. This will be followed by the second part, which will essentially cover about the global strategic environment. And the global strategic environment will talk about the entire globe, what is happening all over the globe, very briefly although. And after that, I'll be covering something about the emerging security calculus from the global security environment. What all things have happened in past 2 years, 3 years? How the strat talks resumed, both the superpowers or post-Cold War, Russia and America came together. How did President Trump pull back in the year 2018? What all things happened in 2008? There was an agreement, it is to be called as JPOC with Iran, but it was pulled back. Trump pulled out from that particular talking. Trump pulled out from, took America out from the TPP, pulled out from the strat talk with the Russians for the reduction of nuclear missiles. So similarly, many other issues took place. Now with Biden government having come back, how things are changing. What is the threat emerging towards Taiwan? What is happening to South China Sea? How did Hong Kong and Hong Kong is supposed to have been formally integrated as per the official signed document between UK and China sometime much later in the year 2047. But how has it happened so early? What is the meaning of Middle Kingdom? And what is happening to Arctic? What is happening towards Antarctica? What is happening to the sea lanes of communication? What is happening in Latin America? Why people, some of us think or may have become ignorant that Canada is emerging to be one of the very rich nations by virtue of the Arctic opening up. And there is an island which is going to be bought by America from Sweden. So what impact is it going to make? And thereafter, we'll be talking about the Indo-Pacific. This is the new paradigm which has come about in the international relationship, which have a direct impact on the regional security of India. Therefore, we need to understand Indo-Pacific per se, because Vietnam, once upon a time, it is not figuring in the Akhand Bharat. But right since time immemorial, India has had a very, I would say, enduring connection with Vietnam. And how has that connection blossomed or grown in Vietnam in terms of providing security apparatus and training and nurturing them and guiding them through? Vietnam is one of the closest allies of India today. So how good are you in the Southeast nation? Briefly. But most importantly, in this part, we should be covering about the Asia, the center of gravity. And not only in 21st century, as per my research and understanding, it will take the humanity well beyond the end of 21st century. Today, as things stand, Asia is the continent of 21st century with the largest population, with the largest GDP, with the largest rate of growth, with the largest nuclear bombs of the nuclear nation states having nuclear arsenals. Also, this particular region has got the epicenter of terrorism. I finished. Adi, if you have anything to add, please.
I think so. The epicenter of terrorism is something that is going to be there in everybody's forethought. Having said that, just to run through in probably a minute of what you've actually taken us through is about the history of the subcontinent, wherein what India was all about, what India is all about today, and what its surrounding is all about. One of the most important things that we forget is that it's not a small nation. It's one of the largest nations in the world, and it's got its unique features, having, as the general very clearly brought out, very differential borderlines and differential terrains all across. One of the very few countries of this size, or any size, to have that kind of varied terrains in their own borderlines, along with the differential in the kind of people that actually live in that land called India. uh, the geostrategic environment around India, and that's what I understand, is changing, and the world is now going to be looking towards this direction, because every little thing which affects the security of the world is actually originating from this entire area. And to my mind, India is going to become a stability factor in this entire turmoil which is going to take place on our western border, from not the western border, but our western frontage, if I may put it that way, is Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the combination of the forces within them, and of course the Chinese, which is a worry for the rest of the world with regards to its expansionism, its belligerence, its aggression, and so on and so forth. So India is going to have a very, very important role to play. The reason of actually bringing all this out is for us to understand that we are not just another country that the world would be able to brush over, that it used to before. Probably had another options, and probably the whole scenario of the Indo-Pacific wasn't as strong as what it is today. Thank you, sir, for this insightful introduction into this, 4 or 5 part series in terms of understanding the regional and the global security threats that we face today. It's very easy for somebody who doesn't know this entire thing to bring about, well, security threats are three: terrorism, nuclear, this thing, and aggression. Each one of these little things have a whole lot of geopolitics, a whole lot of strategic thought involved with them. What we are trying to do is study them in a little detail to come up with a better idea of what's happening around us. Till next time, sir, for the second series, Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you so much.